Alright guys, so the theme of today's videos will probably be about progressive criminal justice reform, which in my opinion is the most dangerous threat to our society, okay? Because a lot of these progressives, they want to just let criminals run this country. I'm so serious about that, okay? And today's video is about Miss Rashida Tlaib, who was pressed in an interview by Mr. Jonathan Swan of Axios about her support for the so-called Breathe Act, which is progressive prison reform legislation that calls to abolish federal prisons within like a 10-year timeline. Now, she was pressed on this, and I want you guys to actually watch this fascinating exchange that she has with the interviewer here, as it really kind of reveals to you how these progressives think. Take a look.
In 2020, you endorsed the Breathe Act, which is a series of proposals to transform America's criminal justice system and create, quote, a roadmap for prison abolition. The Breathe Act proposes emptying federal detention facilities within 10 years. To what extent have you wrestled with any potential downsides of releasing into society every single person who's currently in a federal prison?
Yeah, I think that everyone's like, oh my God, we're gonna just release everybody. That's not
That's
what
what
I'm.
the fact
Yeah,
says.
but did you see how many people are mentally ill that are in prison right now?
No, I know, but the act that you
So
endorsed actually says release everyone
But in 10
years.
years, but think about it, who are releasing?
But there are like human traffickers,
I know.
child sex. So, but
I
you're
mean-
saying, do you mean that you don't actually support that? Because
No,
you endorsed the bill.
No, I endorsed the Breathe Act and looking at federal, the policies and how we incarcerate, absolutely.
But it says in there.
But you cannot just blanketly say, oh, look, she wants, that's not what I'm saying.
But that's like in plain text.
But what I'm saying is look at who's in prison now. No, look at the folks that are mentally ill, that have substance abuse problems.
But I'm not disagreeing with you that there are people who
Yeah, but
should
then
be
why
in
aren't
prison.
you asking me about them? You're asking me about the human traffickers and others that should
I'm trying to understand.
be able to be held
What I'm trying to understand
accountable.
is your proposal is so sweeping. It does release everyone. And what I'm trying to say to you is
within 10 years, and obviously there's a process of looking at how can we get away from mass incarceration and move towards care first.
But what I'm trying to understand, because it is such a sweeping, concrete proposal, do you believe that there are still categories of people who should be behind bars?
There are absolutely folks that I don't know, because right now the way the prison system is supposed to be like rehabilitatory, it's supposed to be rehabilitation, right?
Right.
No, really, that's how I
understand.
Yeah. I don't think there's any rehabilitation happening right now for those that might actually have, and again, a majority, there's so many that have mental health issues, other struggling issues.
Do you think all people can be rehabilitated?
I don't think so. I've been very clear about that.
Okay.
And I only tell you that because, as somebody that has worked in the legal field and others, I don't even know if our society would even know how to be able to rehabilitate every single person that, wants to harm people, right? But I can tell you that what's struggling for me is seeing that the statistics about so many people that at a very young age that are in there that probably would not have been in there but for the fact that they were struggling with mental illness or other issues within their family life, that I think, they would have been more rehabilitated if we came with care first with it rather than criminalization. And that's just true. And it's not just me saying it, it is experts and others out there saying this is actually, not keeping us safe because folks are getting released and they didn't get the care they needed.
But in your vision, there is still, whatever proportion they are, a small proportion who do need to be behind bars.
Yeah, again, I would have to look at every case individually and figure that all out. I can't just say that. I mean,
but you do believe that prisons should still exist.
But I want the American people to know, and they need to know this. Everyone in jail is not the same, because we always pick the worst of the worst cases.
I agree.
Yeah, but we pick up the worst of the worst cases and we just blanketly.
I agree.
Please, I think that's really dangerous because a lot of my returning residents are in block clubs doing amazing things, youth mentoring right now. I have one that all he does is encourage young people not to enter into gangs and talking about like, this is what happened to me in my life. There are some that, are going back to school and one just became a lawyer. I mean, I just think that to me is much more inspiring than locking everybody up.
All right, so there's a whole lot there to kind of talk about here, right? So, Jonathan Swan here, he actually asked her a legitimate question. He's like, you support this bill, right, that calls to basically abolish federal prisons and release all these criminals, right, into society. And Rashida Tlaib tries to deflect and say, well, I don't really mean that. Like, that's not really what I support. And it's like, okay, well, if you don't really support that, then why the hell are you endorsing the bill, right? And she tries to excuse her support for the bill and that provision by saying, well, I don't really mean that. What I really want to focus on here is, people that shouldn't be locked up, people that can be rehabilitated. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I actually kind of agree with you on that. I think that our criminal justice system and our prison system does not focus on rehabilitation enough for those who can be rehabilitated, right? I'm all about second chances and forgiveness, particularly for those who commit non-violent offenses, right? Being locked up for things that are particularly, again, non-violent. However, the problem here is that you did not support a particular bill that just has that. You are endorsing a bill, legislation, that does more than that, right? And this is the problem with our politics, guys, is that these broad bills are too damn broad, right? They're too damn big. If there's a provision in the bill that you don't support, and it's something like that, right? We're talking about releasing all criminals back into society, right? Ending prisons, period. Why would you sign up for it? That's a big enough provision that, in my opinion, that should be a non-starter. Where it's like, no, I can't support this bill unless you take this out of there. But that's not what Rashida Tlaib did. She endorsed the bill knowing that it was in there. And then she wants to get mad and upset and feel like it's unfair for people to question her and say, well, why do you want to release, sexual predators and murderers and human traffickers back in society, right? In which she now has to clarify, well, I don't want to do that, right? That's not necessarily what I want to do. I think those people should be locked up. Okay, so again, why are you endorsing the bill if that's what you believe? Like I said, this is the problem with politics. This is the problem with the legislative process in Congress. People can't come together to agree on something small that everybody can agree on, past that, and then, work on other things. Everything has to be some big overarching sweeping bill to say that we have huge transformational revolutionary change in society. We don't need that, right? That's not what we need. Okay, so, I found this interview to be very, very fascinating. And it just reminds me of the whole defund the police thing. How a lot of this stuff really is a Trojan horse to having a lawless society, right? Just like that Breathe Act. Again, even if you agree with some portions of the bill in regards to rehabilitation, some other things, maybe like, ending, civil asset forfeiture, stuff like that, that's in the bill. Now, there's some other crazy stuff in the bill too, like trying to end life sentences and abolishing ICE, which I don't agree with whatsoever. Okay. But, again, it's almost like a lot of this stuff is a Trojan horse for just letting criminals just run everything, right? Because progressives live in this cuckoo for Cocoa Puff la world where they think that everybody can be rehabilitated and that, there are people that shouldn't be locked up, when the function of the criminal justice system and the prison system isn't just for rehabilitation. Some of it is just literally to actually keep people locked up who just shouldn't be in society, right? Who cannot be rehabilitated, who do not deserve a second chance, like people that murder folks, right? That you got to use some common sense, but progressives lack common sense. Again, just like the whole defund the police thing, where some of these people, a lot of these people, like Ilhan Omar, called to straight up abolish the police. We want to abolish the police. Replace police with social workers, right? As if nothing can go wrong with that, right? As if criminals aren't going to take advantage of that, okay? Like we're seeing happening all across the country in places like San Francisco, right? That has progressive laws in place that, are not prosecuting these criminals for, theft and things like that. They're just running the place, right? They're just running the city. And we're going to do a video about that in a little bit, but I'm just saying, bail reform, right? You see what happened with Darrell Brooks Jr. Dude's getting out of jail for pennies. Proven violent criminal. Okay? Felon. Getting out of jail because his bail is being set so low. Again, a result of progressive criminal justice / prison reform policies. right? In which, because they don't have common sense, they just believe that any type of incarceration is injustice, right? In which they, you got to take a step back and say, okay, let's actually look at things specifically, very specific, narrow policies that need to be changed to make the system better. And they don't want to do that. They just want to reform the whole thing, when that's not how this stuff should work. Okay, you have to be nuanced in looking at this stuff. We shouldn't just be releasing violent criminals back on the streets because, well, excessive bail is bad, right? Just in general, it's just bad. Well, some people, violent criminals, yeah, we should have excessive bail. It should be hard for them to put them back on the street because they've a lot of times proven to be violent. But, I found this interview to be fascinating because it really kind of reveals how extreme a lot of these progressive policies are, right? And when Rashida Tlaib was actually put on the spot about these extreme policies, at least in this interview, she says that even this provision is a little bit too extreme for me, right? So, again, I found it funny how when she was confronted by this, she actually reveals her true position here, and that, maybe she does have just a tiny bit of common sense, right? Not much, but maybe a tiny bit of common sense to admit that, okay, maybe letting all criminals out on the street is probably not a good thing. But again, the question is, if you know that and if you actually believe that, then why the hell did you support the bill? Again, this is the problem with our politics. We have these huge bills that nobody knows what's in it, right? And people just support it because, they just want this overarching change, and that's not how things should work. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.